Welcome back to the world asleep. Beneath the pale breath of the desert night, the Great Pyramid of Giza stands against the stars like a memory carved in stone. Its edges catch the moonlight, its shadow stretches endlessly over the sand, and somewhere within it, something stirs. For thousands of years, the pyramid has been more than a monument. It has been a riddle, a heartbeat sealed behind blocks of granite, waiting in silence. We've walked through its known corridors, we've touched its walls, and yet, most of it remains unseen. There are chambers we have never entered, doors that have never been opened, air that hasn't moved in 4,000 years. Tonight, we go deeper, past the corridors we know, past the light of our torches, into the heart of stone to the hidden chambers that breathe with the echoes of eternity. And as we descend, let your mind grow quiet. The world outside can wait. Only the hum of ancient air, the dust of ages, and the whisper of forgotten kings will remain. Some say the pyramid is a tomb. Others say it is alive. Let's find out what still sleeps beneath the stone. Chapter 1. The Whisper Beneath the Sand. The desert is a quiet sea. Every dune moves like a wave of gold, each grain of sand glimmering with the memory of time. When the wind passes, it sounds like breathing long, slow, endless. Beneath that surface, beneath centuries of drifting dust, the pyramid begins. From afar, it seems eternal and unmoving. Yet below the visible stone, the structure extends downward into darkness. There are layers, unseen foundations older than the light that touches them. Blocks placed so deep, so precise, that even today we can only guess at their pattern. Some say they were meant to anchor eternity itself. Others believe they hide what the eye must never see. The Great Pyramid was never only what stands above ground. Beneath it lie corridors, voids, and sealed thresholds that stretch into silence. To the modern world, these are engineering marvels. But to the ancients, they were part of a map of the heavens, written into stone. When archaeologists first lowered their lamps into the substructure, the air that emerged was thick and still. Dust from forgotten ages hung like smoke. The walls seemed to hum faintly, as if remembering voices long gone. Even the faintest sound, a cough, a step, a whisper echoed forever down narrow shafts. And yet, despite our instruments and our light, the pyramid kept its secrets. Under the sand, there are tunnels that no one has entered in modern history. Some lead nowhere, others end abruptly, sealed by massive slabs of limestone. A few disappear entirely swallowed by collapse, hidden beneath centuries of shifting dunes. These are not accidents. The ancients built barriers of silence into their design, protecting what was meant to endure unbroken. Old texts speak of chambers of becoming, spaces said to hold not treasure, but transformation. They were places of passage, not for the body, but for the soul. Inscriptions from nearby temples mention corridors of night and the breath of Ra within the stone. Each phrase hints that the pyramid was not just a monument of death, but a bridge, a place where human and divine could meet in the hush between heartbeats. Even today, deep below, the air is thick with presence. Those who descend describe the feeling as neither fear nor awe, but something deeper, as if time itself grows heavy, folding around them. Every sound, every footstep feels amplified, sacred. The torchlight trembles against the granite, and the walls seem almost to listen. Scientists have sent scanners into the depths, searching for unknown spaces. Their instruments hum and flicker, reading faint changes in density, tracing invisible lines through the stone. What they find does not obey the pattern of any tomb. There are spaces that shouldn't exist, too perfect, too deliberate, too hidden. Some of these spaces have no entrances. Others are sealed so completely that even sound cannot pass through. And in that silence, the imagination begins to wander. What lies beyond? Another chamber? A vault of lost relics? Or something that was never meant to be opened at all? Local folklore tells of an inner chamber of the breath, where the air itself is alive. It is said that if you listen closely, you can hear it, a low vibration, a hum that moves through the stone like a heartbeat. Ancient workers believed it was the voice of the gods still sleeping within. They would pause in their labor, lay their hands on the wall, and whisper prayers into the rock, offering their silence in exchange for protection. Even now, when the wind crosses the desert, it carries that same hum. It moves through the narrow air shafts, brushing past sealed doors, sighing faintly across the sand. The wind does not forget. It remembers every secret the stones once heard. Modern explorers often speak of the unease that settles as one approaches the subterranean chambers. The temperature drops, the air grows heavy, instruments lose calibration. It is not superstition, it is the physical weight of thousands of tons of stone pressing down. And yet, there is also something else, something unmeasured, something that hums at the edge of perception, a resonance between human heartbeat and granite echo. Legends say that the builders buried more than bodies. They buried sound. Each block, perfectly shaped, traps a tone, a vibration, a piece of the music of creation itself. Over time, those tones merge into silence, but deep below, that silence is not empty. It is full, waiting, almost listening back. Some explorers describe a phenomenon known only to those who have descended into the substructure, the breath of the pyramid. It is said that when you stand in complete stillness, you can feel the faint movement of air, as though the pyramid itself inhales and exhales. Engineers explain it as pressure differences caused by heat and wind outside, but to others, it feels alive, the living breath of an ancient world that never truly sleeps. There are corridors beneath the pyramid that remain unexplored. One of them, known as the descending passage, cuts deep into the bedrock, leading toward a small chamber sometimes called the unfinished room. Its ceiling is low, its walls rough, its floor uneven. No treasures were found there, no carvings, no offerings, only the echo of footsteps and the constant whisper of shifting sand. Some say it was left incomplete on purpose, a symbolic gesture toward the underworld, a space between creation and decay. And yet, even this chamber may not be the last. Ancient maps hint at deeper layers, tunnels sealed before the final stones were placed. A few hieroglyphs near the pyramid's base mention the chamber where the sun does not rise. Scholars have debated its meaning for centuries, unsure whether it describes a myth, a hidden vault, or something more metaphysical, perhaps a concept of the eternal night before rebirth. When you close your eyes, it's easy to imagine the moment of completion, thousands of workers standing beneath the blazing sun, their hands raw, their voices silent as the last block was lowered into place. Dust rising, the sound of stone meeting stone, and then stillness inside, the chambers sealed forever, the breath of the builders locked away with their creation. Thousands of years later, that silence remains. Archaeologists, engineers, dreamers, all have tried to break it, to understand it, to measure it. Yet each discovery only deepens the mystery. Each passage leads to another question, another door that does not open. Perhaps that is the true design, a structure not built to be solved, but to be experienced. a labyrinth of stone that leads the seeker inward, past corridors of dust and air, into the deeper chambers of their own imagination. Because somewhere beneath the sand, the whisper continues. You cannot hear it through microphones or sensors. It speaks only to stillness, only to those who listen in silence. It tells of time and patience, of creation that endures without explanation. It hums with the weight of what cannot be known. And as the desert wind drifts across the plateau, moving gently through the shafts and cracks of the pyramid, it carries that whisper upward, a breath from beneath the sand, rising through the corridors, curling into the night sky. Listen, that sound you hear is not the wind. It is the pyramid itself, exhaling a secret that has waited 40 centuries to be heard. Chapter 2: The Architect's Secret. Every great mystery begins with a hand that measures, carves, and places, a hand that shapes the unseen. When we look at the Great Pyramid today, we see a monument of stone. But once, before the first block was ever set, it existed only in the mind of one man, the architect. His name was Hemiunu, high priest, mathematician, and royal engineer. He was a man of numbers and silence. He did not build with tools alone, but with the language of the stars. The pyramid he conceived was more than a tomb. It was an equation, a perfect harmony between heaven and earth. In his time, every line had meaning. Every chamber, every angle, every shaft was placed in reverence to something greater. The ancients believed that the pyramid was the axis of the world, the point where the mortal and the divine converged. Its sides faced the 4 directions, aligned so precisely that even today, satellites confirm their perfection. Its height once mirrored the radius of the earth multiplied by a sacred ratio. Geometry became prayer. Yet, hidden within these sacred calculations, there was a secret. Among the thousands of blocks, a few are placed ever so slightly askew, not enough for the eye to notice, but enough to disrupt perfect symmetry. When examined closely, this deviation forms a subtle spiral, almost invisible, winding inward toward the heart of the structure. Some scholars believe this was a construction correction, a mere accident of scale. But others whisper that it was intentional, a message encoded in stone. The ancient Egyptians believed in the power of hidden truth, that real knowledge must be veiled. To conceal was to protect. Hemiunu, they say, hid his wisdom where only time itself could read it. Deep inside the pyramid, the corridors form precise angles that mimic the constellation of Orion. The shafts of the king's chamber align perfectly with the belt stars Alnitak, Al-Nilam, Mintaka, each one a gate for the spirit of the king to ascend. But what if those alignments were not only for the king? What if they were a map written for us the future, so that one day, when our tools had caught up to our curiosity, we might finally see what he saw? Some believe that within the mathematics of the pyramid lies a cosmic code, a series of ratios and measurements that mirror the movements of celestial bodies. The pyramid's height to its perimeter equals the ratio of the Earth's radius to its circumference. The slope matches the angle of the sun on the day of the solstice. Nothing here is coincidence. Every inch of stone speaks a language that has no words, only meaning. But there is something stranger still. Recent scans reveal density anomalies, areas where the stone appears lighter, as though hollow or filled with different material. When researchers mapped these against the pyramid's internal layout, the shapes formed patterns resembling spirals and crosses. One cluster, hidden deep beneath the queen's chamber, appears shaped like a cartouche, an oval frame once used to enclose the names of gods and kings. Could it be that Hemiunu signed his work, not in ink, not in chisel, but through geometry itself, embedding his name into the fabric of eternity? And if that is true, what else might he have hidden there? The architect was not only an engineer, he was a priest of Thoth, god of wisdom and measurement. In temple carvings, Thoth is shown recording the design of the universe itself. It is said that his followers believed in the House of Eternity, a sacred structure that contained the pattern of all things. Some texts even describe it as a vessel, a body of the gods, where the divine breath could dwell in stone. If the pyramid was meant to be that vessel, then the hidden chambers were not storage, they were lungs, spaces through which the structure could breathe. There's a curious rhythm to the pyramid's layout, large empty rooms followed by narrow corridors, shafts that rise and fall like inhalation and exhalation. When acoustic tests were conducted inside the king's chamber, researchers discovered standing waves frequencies that amplify and resonate through the granite itself. The sound, they said, was like a low heartbeat, steady and deep. Perhaps the architect designed it this way not only to honor the heavens, but to give life to the stone. Ancient workers described the pyramid as Achet, the horizon of light. To them, it was alive. It was built not to hold a body, but to transform one. The body of the pharaoh entered as mortal flesh and emerged as an imperishable star. The geometry of the pyramid, its chambers and passages, became the engine of that transformation, a sacred machine. The architect's secret, then, might not be hidden in any chamber at all. It might be hidden in the structure's purpose, in the way stone, air, sound, and space work together to change something unseen. But there are whispers of a more literal secret, too. Archaeologists from the early 20th century found strange markings in narrow shafts, symbols etched into corners no human could reach by hand. They appeared rushed, almost unfinished, as if placed there not to be read, but to be remembered. One symbol, repeated again and again, resembles an open eye surrounded by radiating lines. Not the eye of Horus, this one older, simpler. Some call it the eye of the builder. It appears, faintly, in several hidden corridors and nowhere else. No tombs, no temples, no papyrus record mentions it. Perhaps it was the signature of a single man. Perhaps it was the mark of those who helped him build a brotherhood bound not by power, but by silence. And silence was essential. Every stone laid, every chamber sealed, was an act of devotion. To speak of what they built was forbidden. The workers, historians believe, never truly knew what they were creating. Only the high priests and architects understood the full plan. Each man held a fragment of the design, like notes of a song that could never be played alone. When construction ended, the architect vanished from the records. His tomb has never been found. Some say it lies beneath the plateau itself, connected to the pyramid by an invisible passage. Others claim it was hidden deliberately, erased to protect the mystery he served. If his resting place exists, it has never been opened and perhaps never will be. For those who believe in the sacred geometry of creation, his work is his body, his spirit, and his voice. To open his tomb would be to break the spell he left behind. The Great Pyramid stands as his unfinished sentence, a message we can almost hear, but never quite understand. And so the wind continues to move across the plateau, whispering through the air shafts, brushing over the hidden markings, carrying his silence from age to age. The architect is gone, his secret remains. And as you listen to that wind, you might begin to sense what he felt, the weight of something greater than time itself, waiting to be measured. Because perhaps the true secret of the pyramid is not buried within it at all. Perhaps it lives within us, the same instinct to build, to align, to reach upward towards something eternal. The pyramid, after all, mirrors the sky, and when you stand at its base, feeling the slow pull of its symmetry, you are part of its design. You are inside the equation. And somewhere, beneath the stone, the architect's secret still hums a vibration too deep for ears to hear, yet too powerful for silence to erase. Listen closely. The pyramid remembers. Chapter 3. The King's Chamber. At the heart of the Great Pyramid lies a room unlike any other. It is not grand, it is not adorned with gold, nor painted with hieroglyphs. It is bare 6 vast slabs of red granite fitted together so perfectly that even a human hair cannot slip between them. This is the King's Chamber. Standing inside, the air feels thicker, denser, as if charged with something unseen. Every breath carries the weight of centuries. The light falls strangely here, no flicker, no warmth, only reflection. The stone seems to absorb sound, yet return it transformed. Speak softly, and your voice will come back to you, deeper, slower, alive. When early explorers entered this chamber, they expected treasures, relics, gold, perhaps even a sarcophagus of the great pharaoh Khufu himself. Instead, they found a single granite box, lidless, empty, perfectly carved. It rests near the western wall like an altar, as though awaiting something that never came. Some believe it once held a body. Others say it was meant for something far more abstract, vibration, energy, a tuning device for the soul's ascent. Because in this room, silence itself has a frequency. Researchers have measured it, a resonance that occurs naturally between the walls, floor, and ceiling. Strike the granite, and it sings, low and deep. The sound lingers, vibrating through the air, through the body, through the very bones of those who stand within. It's not loud, it's alive. The ancient Egyptians understood sound not as noise, but as creation. To speak a name was to give it life. To chant was to shape the unseen. Their temples were tuned to harmonics echoes that could lift prayers to the heavens. The king's chamber, then, may have been the greatest instrument of all, a resonance chamber built to bridge matter and spirit. Imagine the rituals, torches flickering, air trembling, priests in white linen chanting beneath the granite ceiling, each tone rising and falling until the chamber itself begins to hum. The sound waves aligning, amplifying, until they dissolve into silence so perfect that the heart itself feels it. That silence is not empty. It is full of vibration too slow for ears to catch. You don't hear it. You feel it deep in the chest, behind the ribs, where the pulse begins. Some who have entered the king's chamber speak of sensations they cannot explain. Dizziness, warmth, the feeling of expansion, as if the walls themselves breathe. A few say they felt watched, not by presence, but by awareness. The room, they say, is conscious. Perhaps it is. The proportions of the king's chamber match exact mathematical constants, the golden ratio, the Pythagorean triangle, even the dimensions of the earth itself. Its resonance frequency aligns closely with the human heart rate at rest. This is not coincidence. It is communion. The granite from which the chamber was built came from Aswan, hundreds of miles to the south. Each block weighs up to 80 tons, cut and transported with precision that defies modern understanding. Within the stone lies quartz, a mineral known for its piezoelectric properties, capable of converting vibration into energy. When sound reverberates through the chamber, those crystals hum, generating faint electric charge. Perhaps, in ritual, that hum was the bridge a pulse of energy rising through air and stone, through body and breath, uniting heaven and earth in soundless prayer. For the Egyptians, life was vibration, death was only a change of frequency. The king's chamber, in this light, was not an end, but a passage, the point where one vibration ceased and another began. The empty granite box, then, becomes a symbol, not a coffin, but a vessel, the physical echo of transcendence. Its perfect symmetry, its polished walls, its alignment within the pyramid, all were designed to carry sound, not silence. To release a tone that could never fade, a note struck once in eternity, still reverberating beneath the desert. Even today, when visitors step into that room, many instinctively whisper, some hum softly. A single tone fills the air, and the chamber responds. The sound moves in circles, blending with its own echo until you can no longer tell where your voice ends and the room begins. It is in that merging that one understands the genius of the architect and perhaps the faith of those who built it. The king's chamber was not merely built to house a king, it was built to become him. In ancient belief, the pharaoh was the axis between heaven and earth, the point where divine order met human breath. His transformation after death was not disappearance, but elevation. The pyramid, with all its angles, corridors, and resonance, was the ladder by which he ascended to the stars. The king's chamber was the threshold, the place where transformation began. The shafts that leave the chamber point directly to Orion and Sirius, the homes of Osiris and Isis, gods of rebirth and light. Through those narrow channels, the soul was believed to travel as starlight, leaving behind the weight of the world. And so, when we stand there now, thousands of years later, in the dim light of our torches and cameras, we stand inside a prayer, one so vast that it transcends language. But this prayer is not without its secrets. Acoustic studies reveal that the chamber responds differently depending on where one stands. At certain points, sound amplifies dramatically. At others, it vanishes altogether. This pattern of interference forms invisible shapes, nodes of stillness and motion, a standing wave of geometry made audible. If someone stood at the right point, their voice could vanish completely, swallowed by silence. To the priests, that may have been the sign that the speaker had become one with the structure, their sound no longer separate from the stone. Modern science calls this physics. The ancients called it magic. But perhaps both names describe the same truth, that there are moments when the world aligns so perfectly that meaning and matter are no longer apart. Standing there, you might feel the faint trembling of the walls, the almost imperceptible hum beneath your feet. It is not imagination. It is the echo of every sound ever made in this room. The voices of explorers, the breath of kings, the chant of builders, still circling endlessly through the granite. When you close your eyes, it feels as though time itself has slowed. The air grows thick, almost visible. The edges between self and space blur. There is only resonance, a deep, steady tone that binds you to the stone. And in that moment, you realize you are not a visitor here. You are part of the vibration. The king's chamber does not reveal its secret through sight or sound, but through sensation. It asks for stillness, for listening without ears, for surrender. Because the deeper secret of this place is not what it holds, but what it awakens. There are no carvings on the walls, no texts, no instructions, only proportion, the purest language of all. The message is geometry, the scripture is silence. The secret, perhaps, is that truth cannot be written, it can only be felt. The chamber invites you to listen not outward, but inward, to hear your own heartbeat resonate with the ancient pulse of the stone. to feel the same stillness that once surrounded kings, priests, and stars. In this room, the living and the dead are not opposites, they are harmonics. You and the pyramid, two frequencies, vibrating in the same eternal chord. And as the sound fades and silence returns, it feels almost sacred, as though the stone itself has accepted you for a moment into its rhythm. When you finally step back into the passageway, the world feels louder, air sharper, footsteps heavier, heart slower. You are leaving the pulse of eternity, returning to the noise of life. But the vibration lingers. It hums faintly beneath your ribs, in the quiet between breaths. You carry it with you, the low song of granite, the echo of creation. And somewhere deep within the pyramid, that sound continues, circling endlessly in the dark, the heartbeat of stone, the eternal resonance of kings. Chapter 4: The Queen's Chamber. At the center of the pyramid, halfway between earth and sky, lies a smaller, quieter room, the Queen's Chamber. No gold, no ornament, no carved story breaks the calm of its limestone walls. It feels lighter here than in the king's chamber, as though the weight of the stone above has softened into stillness. The air carries a faint trace of salt, the breath of the desert filtered through millennia of stone. Footsteps sound hollow, distant. The echo is shorter here, closer, like the chamber is listening only to you. The ceiling rises into a corbelled vault, each layer of stone leaning gently toward the next until the lines meet in a single point. It is the shape of an inhale held in silence. No one is sure why this chamber was built. No queen was ever buried here. No inscription names it. Some scholars believe it was meant for a spirit, not a person, but a principle, the human heart, the breath, the unseen twin of the king's chamber above. In the 19th century, explorers noticed two small rectangular shafts cut into the north and south walls. They do not open to the outside, and they are far too narrow for a person to pass. For decades, no one knew their purpose. They were sealed with rough blocks, half hidden by plaster, as if intentionally forgotten. Then, in 1993, a small robot was sent crawling into one of them, a steel serpent sliding through darkness. Its camera showed smooth limestone, then a sudden stop, a door of polished stone fitted with copper pins. Behind it, silence. The machine could go no further. For years, that image, a door behind a door, haunted archaeologists and dreamers alike. When another probe was finally sent decades later, it found yet another barrier. Beyond it, a tiny cavity, empty, featureless, and yet, somehow, not disappointing. The mystery had not been solved, it had been deepened, because the Queen's Chamber is not about discovery, it is about suggestion. It invites the imagination to move where the body cannot, through narrow channels that bend upward, towards stars we cannot see from within. Many believe those shafts were designed as symbolic paths, leading the spirit to northern and southern skies, to the circumpolar stars that never set, and to Orion, the place of rebirth. The ancients spoke of a bar, a soul that could leave the body and travel freely. Perhaps these channels were built as guides for that journey, a geometry for the invisible. When you stand here, in the hush of the chamber, the mind begins to fill the emptiness. You picture the engineers of the Fourth Dynasty laying each stone by torchlight, tracing lines on the floor, aligning shafts by starlight glimmering through the desert haze. The walls glow faintly in imagination, pale ivory against the darkness, dust floating like gold. Someone hums a note to test the resonance. The stone answers softly, a tone higher and thinner than in the room above, as though the pyramid itself has changed key. Unlike the king's chamber, which resonates with depth, this space vibrates with clarity. The pitch here aligns with the human voice, a delicate harmony that seems to shimmer just beyond hearing. Engineers who tested the acoustics found that a single sustained tone can make the air tremble, forming patterns of dust that drift like breath made visible. It is easy to see why ancient priests might have come here to listen, not to worship, but to hear what silence sounds like. Every structure has a personality. The king's chamber is solemn, mathematical, vast. The queen's chamber is intimate, almost human. If the upper room was built for the pharaoh's ascension, perhaps this one was built for his remembrance, the echo of the life left behind. There is a legend, recorded by travelers centuries ago, that beneath the queen's chamber lies a smaller hidden room where the breath of the gods is stored. No evidence supports it, yet the image endures. A pocket of still air sealed since the beginning, a fragment of the first wind trapped inside the pyramid. Even the surrounding passages seem to protect it. To reach the chamber, one must pass through a low granite plug and a rising corridor called the Grand Gallery, a hall of echoes where every step multiplies into dozens more. Then the path narrows, descending into this quiet heart. The journey itself feels like a ritual, a gradual narrowing of sound and light, until all that remains is pulse and breath. When early explorers first entered, they described the sensation of standing in a living lung. The pressure changed with each gust of desert wind outside. The air moved subtly, as if inhaling and exhaling through the sealed shafts. Instruments today confirm it. Temperature shifts create minute expansions, a pulse of the entire pyramid breathing with the Sunday. To the builders, this would not have been physics, it would have been spirit. The pyramid, they believed, mirrored the human form. The queen's chamber was its heart, the king's chamber its head, the subterranean passages its roots in the earth. Between them, air and stone circulated like breath and blood, uniting the body of the world. At night, when the desert cools, the limestone contracts, faint clicks echo through the structure stones settling, sighing. Those who have camped near the pyramid speak of hearing those sounds as whispers, soft as memory. Some say it is the pyramid speaking to itself, others the voice of time. If you listen long enough, you might sense the rhythm, the same slow pattern found in human breathing during sleep. Inhale, exhale, warmth, cold, expansion, stillness. The pyramid and the body moving together under the same sky. Modern instruments have scanned every corner of this chamber, tracing electromagnetic fields, measuring cosmic ray densities, searching for hollows beyond the walls. So far, nothing has been confirmed. Yet the data shows small irregularities, tiny shifts in density, places where the stone seems just a little lighter. Perhaps gaps, perhaps anomalies, perhaps something waiting for a future method to see. But maybe that uncertainty is the point. The Queen's chamber teaches that not every secret must be opened. Some are meant only to be imagined. In a world that measures everything, the unknown becomes sacred. Close your eyes here. Hear the faint hum of air moving through invisible channels. Feel the cool stone beneath your fingertips, the way it draws warmth from your skin. Somewhere above, the moon crosses the night sky, its light touching the pyramid's tip. A beam of starlight finds its way through the shafts, grazing a hidden corner. Dust glows for an instant, then fades. The Queen's chamber sleeps again. When you step back into the corridor, the sound of your breathing feels louder, like leaving a dream. The passage slopes upward toward the grand gallery, the light ahead brighter than before. The path narrows, but the mind feels wide open, filled with quiet wonder. Behind you, the chamber remains as it has for 40 centuries, empty, precise, waiting. Whatever secret it was meant to hold has long since become air and light, yet its presence lingers. The Queen's chamber does not tell us what the pyramid was built for. It reminds us why we still ask. Because somewhere behind its sealed doors and narrow shafts lies the oldest human impulse of all, to look into darkness and listen for a heartbeat. Chapter 5: The Hidden Void. In 2017, the pyramid breathed again. For the first time in more than 4 millennia, something inside it revealed itself not through excavation or chance, but through the invisible rain of particles falling from the stars. Physicists had brought an instrument called a muon detector to Giza. It did not dig or drill, it simply waited. Every moment, cosmic rays from deep space strike Earth's atmosphere, breaking into tiny particles that pass easily through stone. By tracking how those particles scatter, scientists can see density, emptiness, shape. It is a way of seeing with starlight. Weeks became months. The instruments whispered numbers, computers translated them into patterns of shade and light, and slowly a shape emerged, a space where no space should be. Above the grand gallery, hidden in the heart of the pyramid, lay a vast void nearly 30 meters long. No passage reached it, no record mentioned it. It was simply there, silent and untouched since the age of Khufu. News spread quickly. Some called it a new chamber, others a flaw, but in truth, no one knew what it was. The discovery was as delicate as breath itself, a shadow of emptiness mapped by the smallest things in the universe. The engineers looked at their diagrams and saw possibility. Archaeologists looked and saw restraint. How could something so large have remained unseen through centuries of exploration? How many more layers might still sleep inside the stone? Theories multiplied like echoes. Perhaps it was a relieving space, a pocket left by the builders to lighten the load above the gallery. Perhaps it was an unfinished corridor, sealed when plans changed. Or perhaps, said the dreamers, it was intentional, a chamber built not for bodies or treasures, but for silence alone. Imagine it, a room of darkness suspended within rock, never entered, never disturbed. Inside, the air would be the same that filled it on the day it was sealed. Still, dry, older than every living thing on Earth today. If a candle could burn there, its flame would illuminate the purest absence walls that have never known a human gaze. When researchers modelled the void, they noticed its position mirrored that of the grand gallery below, as though the pyramid had duplicated its own passage in shadow. The architecture seemed to echo itself, a design repeated in solid and in hollow. Some likened it to the chambers of the human heart, one filled, one empty, pulsing together. In the years that followed, more detectors were placed, more measurements made. The results held the void was real, yet still unreachable. No one has drilled toward it. The pyramid is too precious, its equilibrium too perfect to risk. The chamber remains a shape in data, a whisper of geometry floating above granite beams. At night, when the plateau cools and the desert wind softens, it is tempting to imagine the void awakening air shifting minutely, grains of dust stirring in darkness. Perhaps that small movement is what the detectors felt, the pyramid adjusting to the breath of the world. The ancient builders had no word for void in the way we use it. To them, Emptiness was potential the nun, the primeval ocean from which creation rose. In that mythology, the world began not from matter, but from a silence so vast it became fertile. Maybe the architect understood that a chamber of air could be as sacred as a chamber of stone. The void, then, may not be an accident. It may be the heart space of the pyramid, the pause between one note and the next in the cosmic song. Standing outside, you cannot see it. You can only feel the idea of it. Beneath thousands of tons of limestone, a pocket of nothing drifts through centuries of stillness. It is as though the pyramid itself is holding its breath. There is a humility in that thought. For all our lasers and scans, we are still children with lanterns, circling a mountain of mystery. Each discovery widens the unknown. Each answer dissolves into deeper questions. The scientists who found the void returned again and again to check their data. Each time, the same pattern appeared. Each time, the same silence greeted them. The pyramid seemed to be reminding us, you may see, but you may not touch. Somewhere in that sealed space, grains of desert dust rest exactly as they settled on the day the workers left. The air is unchanged, the temperature constant. Time does not pass there as it does here. It simply rests. And perhaps that is the pyramid's final lesson, that to preserve eternity, one must learn to stop moving. The builders achieved that by sealing a breath of air within stone, a living memory of stillness. The data from the muon scans are public now, free for anyone to study. On a screen, the void appears as a pale cloud floating above darker lines. To the eye, it is unremarkable, yet knowing what it represents changes everything. You look at the pyramid and realize that what we call solid is mostly space, and what we call empty may hold the essence of meaning. The ancient texts of the Book of Coming Forth by Day speak of the soul crossing a place called the Field of Silence, where nothing moves, nothing speaks, yet all creation waits. The description fits the void more closely than any tomb. Perhaps the builders gave the king that field not outside, but within his own monument. We cannot know, and maybe we do not need to. Some mysteries work best when they remain untold. The void teaches patience, like the desert itself, endless surface, hidden depth. Stand once more at the base of the pyramid. Look upward at the millions of stones glowing under the moon. Somewhere near the middle of that slope lies a room of air and darkness. It has no door, no name, no sound. Yet it may be the purest part of the whole structure, the space that allows the rest to exist. Without the pause, there is no rhythm. Without the gap, no form. Without the void, no pyramid. The discovery of 2017 was not an intrusion into ancient secrecy. It was a reminder of it. The pyramid is not done speaking. It is still revealing itself, one layer of silence at a time. And as we leave the plateau in imagination, the desert wind rises again, sweeping across the limestone, carrying dust into the sky. Somewhere beneath that vast geometry, an empty chamber remains untouched, unseen, perfectly quiet. It waits, as it always has, for the next breath of starlight to pass through. Chapter 6. The Heart of the Pyramid. The echoes of the last chamber fade, and yet the stone remembers. As we move deeper into the pyramid, the air grows cooler, heavier, carrying the memory of hands that shaped it, chants that once rose here, and the quiet intention of a civilization that sought eternity in limestone and granite. Good evening, dear listener, and welcome back to The World Asleep. Tonight, we do not merely observe history, we step inside it. The shadows of the guardians linger just beyond the torchlight, and if you listen carefully, you may sense the whispers of those who walked here before us, moving through corridors meant not for eyes alone, but for souls. The entrance behind us disappears into darkness, replaced by the hum of stone pressing in on all sides. It is here that the pyramid stops being a monument and begins to breathe. Can you feel it? Perhaps it is only your own pulse. Or perhaps, just for a moment, the pyramid itself awakens alive with purpose, with memory, with patience. We step into the king's chamber, the heart of the Great Pyramid. The walls are immense, smooth and unadorned, yet they seem to hum beneath your feet, carrying vibrations older than the desert outside. The granite here is not just stone, it is a vessel. Scholars speak of resonance, of energy that travels along these surfaces, yet even without knowledge of physics, you can feel it. The room itself seems to listen, to respond to the presence of the living. The ceiling rises impossibly high, made of massive slabs placed with precision that still baffles the world. In the silence, every breath echoes, every movement becomes a conversation with the past. Here, eternity is tangible not in gold, not in treasure, but in the patient, deliberate weight of stone holding 1,000 lifetimes. And yet, beyond the king's chamber lies the queen's chamber, smaller, quieter, yet no less mysterious. Unlike its larger sibling, it seems to cradle secrets rather than declare power. Some believe it was never intended for a body, but as a sanctuary for spirit, a place where the soul could rest before ascending. Standing there, the air shifts subtly, carrying a coolness that feels alive, almost sentient, as though the chamber itself acknowledges your presence, gauging your intent, your respect, your curiosity. Narrow shafts extend from both chambers, reaching toward the heavens. No one truly knows why, though many have speculated that they serve as conduits, channels for the spirit, the breath of the divine, or even the whispers of stars themselves. If you listen closely, in the quietest moments, you might hear it, a low vibration, a hum that travels along the stones and into your body, a song of resonance older than memory. In the chambers of the pyramid, time behaves differently. Outside, the desert moves with wind and sun, days flowing into nights. Inside, time pauses, bends, and folds. Each step, each breath, becomes deliberate, weighted with intention. It is here that the ancients remind us, the pyramid is not a tomb, it is a guide, a map of transformation, a vessel for consciousness. And perhaps this is why, for millennia, the pyramid has called to those who seek more than what the eye can see. Explorers and scholars, dreamers and mystics all have been drawn here, not to conquer or claim, but to listen, to feel the pulse of stone, the memory of hands, the silent breath of eternity moving through chambers too precise, too vast, too alive to be coincidence. Some traditions whisper that if you place your hand on the granite of the king's chamber, if you sit quietly in its cool, still air, you may feel a rhythm, a heartbeat, not your own, but the heartbeat of the world itself, of earth, of stone, of eternity. And in that heartbeat, the past and present merge, the visible and invisible touch. Perhaps this is the true secret of the pyramid, that it was never meant to be understood in words or maps. It was meant to be experienced, felt, and remembered. That even in silence, even in darkness, there is communication. That the stone, the air, the corridors themselves are alive with intention. As we rise from the Queen's chamber back into the corridor, the narrow shafts catch the light of our torches, sending shadows dancing along the walls. They remind us of what we cannot see, of forces unseen, of energy held in stillness, of the guardians who remain, ever watchful, ever patient. And in the quiet that follows, you might hear it again, the soft hum of the pyramid, the whisper of eternity carried through stone, waiting for the one who will listen. For those who pause, who respect, who feel the pyramid does not merely hold secrets, it shares them. Slowly, subtly, like wind threading through the desert, like a pulse beneath the earth, like a whisper in the dark. And now, dear listener, as you let your breath settle, imagine the chambers closing gently behind us. The stone remembers, the air holds, the echoes fade, yet the pulse remains. A memory of the ancient, the mysterious, the eternal. Sleep with that thought tonight, that some stones are alive, some walls breathe, and some places like the heart of the pyramid will always listen. Chapter 7. The Pyramid's Whisper. The corridors fall silent behind us, and the echo of the king's chamber lingers only as a memory, a faint vibration beneath the soles of our feet. The stone walls, cold and eternal, seem to inhale as we move, pulling the air with them, drawing us deeper into the quiet. The pyramid is alive in a way that the world outside cannot comprehend, not with voice, but with pulse. A rhythm as old as the desert itself, patient and unhurried, marking time in a heartbeat we can feel but cannot name. Here, in the spaces between chambers, the whispers of the past grow stronger, not voices as we know them, but echoes of intention, of thought carried into stone. The builders left more than architecture, they left presence. Every joint, every angle, every corridor hums with the memory of hands that shaped the impossible from granite. We are intruders in their eternity, yet also witnesses, allowed a brief communion with a consciousness older than any ruler, older than any empire. The air is cooler here, scented faintly with dust, stone, and something harder to name, the fragrance of history pressing against time. As we walk, the walls seem to breathe. Shadows shift in the flicker of our torch, lengthening, shortening, pooling like liquid darkness. Each chamber becomes a mirror of another, reflecting corridors we have not yet seen and perhaps never will. The pyramid has a way of folding space inward, making us feel both immense and infinitesimal at once. In these quiet halls, folklore clings like the dust. Some speak of secret chambers that appear only to those who are ready, rooms that are not on any map, whose thresholds are invisible until approached with reverence. Travelers whisper of golden light that seeps through the cracks at midnight, illuminating walls etched with knowledge meant for the soul rather than the eye. Others say the pyramid sings at twilight, a low, resonant tone that vibrates through the bones, carrying wisdom from the builders across millennia. Perhaps it is the same pulse we felt in the king's chamber, multiplied across every stone and corridor, a heartbeat waiting for those who are still enough to hear. And still we walk, feeling the weight of the air, each breath deliberate. The stone under our hands is cool, smooth in some places, rough in others, as though every surface carries intention. We move slowly, understanding that here haste is not merely useless, it is impossible. The pyramid requires patience. It measures not in hours or days, but in the slow erosion of time, in the quiet accumulation of centuries. Even the smallest movement becomes an offering, each footstep a prayer whispered into stone. It is easy, standing here, to imagine the pyramid not as a tomb, not as a monument, but as a vessel, a repository of thought, memory, and intention. Perhaps the chambers were never meant for the dead, but for the living, a space where those who enter can feel the weight of eternity, the presence of the past made manifest. Folklore insists that the pyramid remembers everyone who passes through, holding fragments of thought, emotion, and curiosity within its walls. A visitor who lingers too long might swear that the stone breathes in rhythm with their own, that the shadowed corners are not empty, but listening. Some speak of the pyramid as a map, not of land or stars, but of consciousness itself. The shafts and passages align with celestial bodies, the chambers with cycles of life, death, and rebirth. They are not merely architectural feats, they are symphonies of intention, each stone a note, each corridor a chord in a song older than any human voice. To walk through these halls is to trace a melody that resonates not in the ears, but in the mind, in the quiet spaces where understanding and wonder dwell side by side. The king's chamber, the queen's chamber, the grand gallery, they are familiar landmarks. Yet as we move between them, their familiarity fades. Each step reveals new dimensions, a subtle change in light, a shift in air pressure, a hum so faint it might be imagined. The pyramid has a way of showing that nothing is truly as it seems, that what is hidden may be more powerful than what is revealed. Even the tiniest details, a scratch in the granite, a curve in a corridor, the faint trace of an ancient hand carry significance beyond our immediate understanding. Legends speak of the pyramid as a living being, patient and omniscient. Some claim that if you stand still long enough, the stone will respond, not with words, but with a sense of comprehension, a door that feels warmer, a corridor that narrows as if guiding you, a faint vibration in the soles of your feet. The builders, it is said, infused the structure not with magic in the way we imagine, but with attention, a meticulous, meditative reverence that persists even now. Every alignment, every choice of material, every hidden chamber is an act of dialogue across time, an invitation to listen. And we listen. Through the corridors, the whispers grow into a low chorus, not voices, but a resonance carried through the stone. It moves through us as we move, filling the spaces between thought and awareness, between breath and heartbeat. In this quiet, it is impossible to separate the self from the stone, the present from the past. We are both observers and participants in the pyramid's eternal song. It is a reminder that some mysteries are not solved, but experienced, that understanding need not be spoken to be known. Outside, the desert stretches vast and silent, but inside, the pyramid holds its own world. The play of light, shadow, and space becomes a meditation. Even the smallest flicker of our torch seems magnified, casting shapes that are more than mere shadows, fleeting hints of something larger, something aware. Some say these are the remnants of the builder's consciousness, lingering like echoes in a hall of mirrors. Others suggest they are memories of those who have passed through over millennia, moments of wonder, fear, devotion, and curiosity preserved in stone. We pause at the intersection of a hidden shaft, sensing the weight of everything the pyramid holds. A subtle breeze brushes past, though no opening is near. It carries the faintest trace of incense and dust, a reminder that this space was shaped not only by hands, but by intention. Here, one can imagine the builders walking silently, aligning stone with sky, breath with heartbeat, thought with eternity. And perhaps, if we listen closely enough, we too become part of that rhythm, our own pulse echoing in the halls, joining the chorus of those who came before. The pyramid whispers, and we realize that it does not demand attention. It offers it, not knowledge, not secrets, but presence. Each corridor, each chamber, each carefully carved stone is a gesture of patience and reverence. The builders understood something timeless, that the true purpose of such spaces is not to enclose, but to reveal, to show that stillness, curiosity, and respect are themselves a form of communion with the infinite. In this final chamber of reflection, the air seems to thrum softly, a subtle resonance that aligns with the rhythm of the earth. Shadows shift, light bends in quiet ways, and the pyramid feels less like a structure and more like a living pulse, a witness to all that has been and all that may come. It is a place where curiosity is honored, where wonder is allowed to linger, where the past, present, and future meet in silence. And as we prepare to leave, stepping back through the corridors, the whispers remain. They do not fade, they are absorbed into memory, carried in the mind like wind through a canyon. The pyramid has shared what it can, a touch, a hum, a feeling of connection, and we carry it with us. We leave, but the pulse remains, patient, eternal, waiting for the next traveler who dares to walk in quiet, to breathe in rhythm, and to listen. Outside, the desert night embraces the pyramid. Stars scatter like silver dust across the sky, distant winds whisper through the dunes, and the structure stands serene, unchanging, yet alive in ways that words cannot capture. We glance back, feeling the presence of 1,000 hands, 1,000 hearts, shaping eternity with reverent care. The chambers, though empty of us, are full of everything we cannot see but can sense: intention, memory, patience, and a quiet kind of wisdom. And now, as your own journey draws to a close, take a slow breath. Let the stillness of these halls flow into your chest, settling in the quiet spaces you forgot were there. Imagine the whisper of the pyramid moving through you, brushing against your mind and spirit, reminding you that silence is never empty, that mystery is never truly gone. Good night, traveler. Let the echoes of stone, shadow, and eternity rest beside you. May your dreams carry the whispers of the pyramid, patient, enduring, and alive, and may you awaken carrying a fragment of that calm, that presence, that quiet wonder into the world beyond.